stream.
I just heard the voice saying live streaming is on.
Okay, yes. Okay. Let's see if I can find where it is. This looks so professional. But never mind. Oh dear. Where's this one gone? Okay. Right. Okay. Got it. I'm going to just let all the people know that we're on a different stream. Okay. Oh dear. Right. So my microphone appears to be noisy. I think it's okay. Let's see if we've got anybody. Well, we've got a few viewers at the moment. Okay, right. Okay. You're right. Hi, everybody. Right. Okay. Bill, I can't remember what you were saying.
Well, I'll just recap. In 2016, there was like this three-cornered game of just what amounted to a basically a big black hole, which was MGM didn't care to make a James Bond movie because it was too busy selling itself to the Chinese. It didn't work out. Eon Productions didn't want to make a James Bond movie because Barbara Broccoli wanted to do. She did, what was it? The movie with about Gloria Graham, the actress. Film Stars Don't Die in Liverpool, which was seen by dozens of people. Like the maximum number of theaters it was in the U.S. was like 107, and it did not even have a $500,000 worth of box office in the U.S. And they made another movie called Nancy, which was like, I don't even know what that was. Like even fewer people saw that. And also Daniel Craig didn't want to do a James Bond movie, and he was doing a movie with Halle Berry that was set in 1992 in Los Angeles in the midst of all the riots. And that movie, I don't know if anybody remembers it, because I don't, because it came out the same weekend as Avengers Endgame. So it was like seen by maybe 4 or 5 dozen people. I don't know. And that's an exaggeration, but clearly nobody saw it. So you had all this stuff that was going on, and I get it. Actors are artists and they want to do different things. And Barbara Broccoli has artistic pretensions, so she wanted pretense. That's the wrong word. She had artistic ambitions, so she wanted to do other things. And then they also did the rhythm section, which went and didn't exactly attract much of an audience. Now, the rhythm section actually has its defenders, but that's fine. But still, nobody still wanted to see it. So essentially, like, you blew off an entire year before you even got to thinking about a James Bond film. And so at one point, early in 2017, Neil Purvis and Robert Wade did an interview because they had this TV project. Oh, we have no idea how you could possibly do a James Bond picture. It's like the age of Trump. Oh, we just can't even think of any ideas. So naturally, by March, they're hired on to write a James Bond movie. So, like, well, okay, that's a lot of enthusiasm going. And then it wasn't until like the summer of 2017 that finally Daniel Craig says, yeah, I'll come back. And so you basically wasted more than a year. At least that would be the perspective of James Bond fans. And so then then you begin the hard work of actually trying to get a Bond film together. And then they had like, oh, we'll bring in Phoebe Waller-Bridge, we'll bring in Scott C. Burns. Oh, and then that's not even without then the whole Danny Boyle thing. It's like, oh, Danny Boyle's got this great idea. Let's just throw all that work we've done and go with that. And then they do that for a while. It's like, oh, well, we don't want to do that. So, well, that's out. And it's just like all this stuff. I mean, it is a real soap opera. And it's like, I've detailed a lot of this on the Bond 25 timeline. And when I started it, I began the Bond 25 timeline in early 2018, because by that point, there'd been so many twists and turns, I couldn't keep it straight. So I needed to like put down something I could go back to and refer to. And it's like, little did I know it would become my life's work. Or so it seems, but
it's pretty handy. It's amazing how much went on with No Time to Die. It's incredible. It's fantastic to have as a historical for historical research, because I can't remember when and where things happened. There's just so much has happened. It's just it's crazy. So if you hadn't started doing that, I don't think anybody would have catalogued it.
I certainly wouldn't have, because I mean, some of the just strange, goofy things. So like, I think this was like in September of 2016. There was some outlet that said, yeah, Sony wants to like pay Daniel Craig $150 million to do 2 more James Bond films. Except the problem with that was Sony was out of it. Their contract to distribute Bond was done with Spectre. So like, where did this come from? And then at one point, this was also in that 2016 time frame, it was about, yeah, they're going to like adapt a Raymond Benson continuation novel, but they're going to call it Shatterhand. Like, why? Which makes no sense, but that's the British tabloids for you. They go off and go on these tangents.
That was never going to happen. I mean, it was ridiculous. And I remember on Twitter, Raymond Benson said, well, that's news to me.
Yeah. And he said, like, nobody ever called me. Nobody from the tabloid, I forget which one reported, nobody ever actually called me up. Yeah. And just also, so with No Time to Die, a tremendous amount of time was lost because of various agendas of various parties. Again, MGM had its own agenda, Barbara Broccoli had her agenda, and Daniel Craig had his. And again, like, if anybody, like, I dare anybody to say they've actually seen Film Stars Don't Die in Liverpool and have seen the Daniel Craig Halle Berry film and have seen Nancy. If anybody has done that trifecta, your hat's off to me, because like, I've never been interested in seeing any of those 3 movies.
Yeah. And so right, so 2016, there were all these rumors, and it was after Daniel Craig had that infamous interview where he had mentioned that he would rather slit his wrists than become James Bond again. So I can't even remember when it was that they actually did start to get their ducks in a row for Bond 25, as it was at that stage. Was it 2017, 2018?
2017, in March of 2017, the Daily Mail had a story that Purvis and Wade had been hired. That was by Baz Bamboy, or however he pronounces it. And so, like in years past, he had some pretty accurate things, and this thing would be proven correct eventually. But Baz, I don't think his sources are as good as they were in years past, and he's gone off to do other things anyway. But yeah, like, you know, so suddenly in March of 2017, he writes that Purvis and Wade had been hired, and this is eventually confirmed in, I think, July of 2017, because, you know, Eon put out an announcement which had a November 2019 release date and said that Purvis and Wade were writing it, but mentioned nothing about Daniel Craig, because that would be like another month before he finally confirmed he was coming back.
Oh God! Just think, we could have had a Bond film back in October, November 2019. It would have been fantastic,
and you would have gotten it out before the whole pandemic, and that would have all been nothing. That would have been no concern whatsoever. They would have had the traditional release, and but you know, and I mean, there are certain fan sites that are they're on the side of Eon, and like, you know, please, you know, don't you even think about criticizing Eon. Fine, if that's what you want to do, that's fine. But it still remains, if they could have gotten a movie out in the fall of 2019, none of this would even be a concern. But it didn't play out that way.
No, it certainly didn't. And I mean, even when they did get things, well, even when they did get going with it, and Daniel Craig announced, well, first of all, he denied it on
the
US
same day
TV,
he
didn't
confirmed
he?
It, yeah. Because he was doing radio station interviews in the US that day. So nothing's been decided, and then he goes on. It's the Stephen Colbert show, but he went on a late night show on CBS, and then suddenly confirms, and even like kind of said, well, I kind of feel sorry about pulling the leg of those radio stations I lied to, which is what he did. And that's, and that phrase, you may interpret that phrase as being harsh, but I think it's actually accurate. He did lie. And then I was looking at other things on the timeline today. I don't know how much you remember of this stuff. It was like, oh my God, there was, besides Phoebe Waller-Bridge, we had the whole Scott Z. Burns saga. I mean, it's like, you know, because like there was an entertainment website here in the US, like, yeah, like Scott Z. Burns, he's rewriting it. He's gonna it's all his. Well, you know, he did work on it clearly, but like, you know, but he didn't work on it enough to get a screen credit.
Yeah, I know, because at the time that was a huge thing that he was involved with it, and then but it wasn't that long before they got oh God, I'm really having I really have a brain freeze around her at the moment. It's Phoebe Waller-Bridge, and right. I'm just going to go off on a tangent for a moment, and I'll see if I can. I'll see if you can understand why. Because earlier in the week, it may have been Sunday or Monday morning, something like that, and the thing that I understood was that there were a lot of people pissed off with Phoebe Waller-Bridge because she'd smashed a guitar on American TV on Saturday night. On Saturday night, and so I thought, so what the hell's she doing with a guitar anyway? You know, a word processor or a laptop, yeah, but a guitar, no. Anyway, when I looked into it, I had the wrong person. It's Phoebe Bridges who smashed a guitar, and but it's a bit surprising how many people are a bit yeah, they're really annoyed with it. So let me see if I can share my screen. Where am I? Dear, this is gonna be another tech fail. I'm pretty sure. But
well, while you do that, I just thought of another saga. I mean, remember when? Oh, go ahead. There it is.
There she is, and I'm not quite sure why people are so pissed off at her, because well, I guess it's her guitar. It's if she came around to my house and smashed up my guitar, I'd be pretty pissed off. But I think it was her guitar. But it's not something new. It's one of the kind of really classic punk album sleeves is "London Calling" by The Clash, which neatly brings it back to Bond, because the title track from this album was used in Die Another Day. So that's my tangent.
Well, I was just going to say, I mean, remember Denis Villeneuve? I mean, that was a thing. And I think that was like the fall of 2017 before Danny Boyle entered the scene, because like he was like one of the people, one of the potential directors, and it was surfaced by Variety and some of the other entertainment media. And at the time, he had this movie, Blade Runner 2049, that came out. And like I did a post about it. I actually went to see it in the theater. I was probably like one of the last people, because I don't think it was in the theater very long. It didn't do very well. And I did a post. I didn't even say it was a review. It was just isolated observations. And so some guy who is like clearly a Denis Villeneuve fan went after me hard on Twitter, like how I was such an ignorant idiot that I could not appreciate the genius of Denis Villeneuve. Like, what? Like, come on, man.
Yeah. I remember seeing the first Blade Runner on the big screen. One of the very few people who did, I think.
Yeah. And so he was supposed to be the next big thing. And he even admitted in a podcast interview, yes, they did approach me, but I was already working on Dune, on this new version of Dune, so I didn't have time. I could not consider it. So, but there were like stories, I think the Daily Mail had one about supposedly Daniel Craig was like really anxious. Denis Villeneuve must direct. And there were like a series of these, because then later it's like Daniel Craig is like really serious that Danny Boyle must direct. And it's like, it's like, who knows how much of this is real and how much isn't. But like after a while, it's like I can sort of appreciate why Albert R. Broccoli didn't want to take on Sean Connery as a partner, because back in the 60s, because come on, man, it's like you can only have so many. You can have only so many co-pilots telling you how to fly the plane. At some point, somebody's got to fly the plane, and shut up in the back and, be quiet while I fly the plane. Yeah. Anyway, I guess what I'm trying to say is like people have like talked about COVID and COVID's been a factor clearly, but there was like a lot of noise and a lot of messy stuff that is like kind of all been swept under the rug and nobody wants to talk about it anymore. But it's like, this all played a factor. We could have easily had a James Bond movie out in the fall of 2019 if there had been a little more discipline.
Yeah, they didn't know how spoiled they were in the 60s, did they?
No, they didn't. And
can you imagine having a Bond film a year?
I know. I mean, I went back and looked, and people go by release years, but it was the difference between You Only Live Twice and Thunderball wasn't 2 years. It was actually more like a year and a half, because Thunderball came out in December of 65 and You Only Live Twice came out in June of 67. And actually the the elapse between You Only Live Twice and On Her Majesty's Secret Service was like more like 2+ years, because Majesty's didn't come out until like this Christmas of 69, but at the time it's like, that's fine, but like now it's like,
it's lucky they didn't have Twitter in those days.
Really, or Facebook or any of that stuff. So yeah, can you imagine like Twitter and like, oh, Connery quit. Oh, who's this Australian guy? Oh, he's a jackass. All this. Like, oh wait, the new James Bond is like, he was supposedly having romantic relationships with most of his co-stars on Majesty. That in itself would have been like, oh God, your head would have exploded with all the Twitter activity about that.
Yeah, but I wonder, in fact, in those days, I wonder how many people went to the cinema and they didn't even know that Sean Connery wasn't Bond anymore. They went thinking, oh, right, it's a Bond film. It's a new Bond film. I'm into Bond, and without the way information travels these days, I wonder if there must have been some people who were expecting Connery.
You know what? No doubt. I remember I was 11 years old. My mother took me to see the movie, and I knew okay, it's a different guy. My mom told me so. But okay, he's playing the same guy, so don't worry about it. And I remember I was 11 years old. So I was fine. It's okay, they change actors every so often. Okay, I just want to see James Bond. What I didn't know was oh, Diana Rigg's gonna die. But that's a whole nother thing. But
well, that would have been a pretty big spoiler for you. So
yeah. No, I didn't know it going in. I did not know it going in. My dad had read the novel, but he didn't want to see the movie. And so when I got back from home, I was shell shocked. And my dad was low key about it. I said, "So what'd you think?" "Oh, she died." Well, that's the way it goes.
Yeah, but just think if On Her Majesty's Secret Service had been as faithfully adapted as You Only Live Twice, for instance, then
oh man, you know what? It's funny. I had an exchange by direct message today with a Bond friend, and he is a big admirer of On Her Majesty's Secret Service. He loves it. He thinks it's his favorite movie, period, not just his favorite Bond film. But he really gets annoyed because some of his fellow Bond fans still complain about You Only Live Twice not being a faithful adaptation. And it's oh, they didn't do the Blofeld trilogy. The Blofeld trilogy was basically a throwaway line that Raymond Benson made in his book, The James Bond Bedside Companion. It's a phrase he made talking about the Thunderball novel. But since then, and probably since Lord of the Rings and all this stuff, suddenly trilogy has become this, people treat it almost as a religion. I mean, Fleming didn't write it as a trilogy. For one thing, he actually wrote 4 books. It's because the Spy Who Loved Me novel mentions Spectre. It's but anyway, but people are decades later, they are still.
It's a trilogy in 4 parts.
Yeah. And like I said, it wasn't that Fleming wrote it as a trilogy. He wrote one novel at a time. By that point, he's kind of hitting himself on the head with a hammer trying to come up with plots. And so people say, oh, they should have made the Blofeld trilogy faithfully. It's guys, I said this to you. We had done a watch along about You Only Live Twice. And I said, listen, I made my peace long ago with You Only Live Twice, the film, not being a faithful adaptation. It's an entertaining movie. Is it, like the novel? No, it's not. It has some of the characters but is it the worst? Is it the worst mistake in the history of the James Bond film franchise? No, it's not. I mean, it's Die Another Day, making Blofeld Bond's stepfather. Those are more serious mistakes than what they did with You Only Live Twice.
Yeah.
But people get all bent out of shape. They latch onto something they can't let go, and they just, what I've tried to do in my old age is it's not what I would have done, but it's entertaining, so I'll just let it go. It's fine. It's fine for what it is, and I accept it for what it is. And in some alternate universe, maybe they did make a faithful adaptation. But I will say this: I think trying to make a faithful adaptation of the You Only Live Twice novel, that would be damn hard, and you would have to do something. You would probably have to do something like with Casino Royale, where you have to like latch on like a lot of action sequences on top of the basic plot. But it's fine. Just accept, just enjoy it. It's like, unless you can invent a time machine and go back to make it the way you want it, it's not going to happen. So just enjoy yourself and don't worry about it.
Well, I've got to say, at one period of my life, I just thought I'm not interested in all the Bond films that discard too much Fleming. I became a bit of a well, don't know if you want to call it a purist or a Fleming snob about it, or something like that. And I think that really changed when I bought all the DVDs as a box set, and I don't know, sometime in the 2000s, and so I had this entire box of films, and I thought I'm going to watch every single film in order, and I'll watch all the extras and everything. But I didn't do that. The first film that I picked out of this box, I've got this attaché case with them all in, was The Man with the Golden Gun. which was my first ever Bond. So because of my age, like you, Bill, that my first experience of Bond was on the big screen. It was before Bond was on TV. So
right.
I think it was a year or two after I saw The Man with the Golden Gun that Dr. No was first on British television. And so it was only then that I became aware of Sean Connery, because the only person until that point who was Bond was Roger Moore. And I loved The Man with the Golden Gun when I first saw it. And, well, I still do. Sorry, people.
Well, and that's the thing. You shouldn't have to apologize. Yeah,
no, I'm joking.
I know you're joking, but I'm serious in the sense that, like, nobody should ever have to apologize. I like it because I like it, and just like some people say, oh, it's a guilty pleasure. I hate that term, because it's like, if you like it, you own it. Like, you like it, and it's like, well, I like it despite this thing, because times have changed, and that's fine. But just trying to be apologetic. And here's the other thing about being a Fleming snob or Fleming purist. It's like they flipped the order of Dr. No from Russia with Love when they made the movies. It's like, why isn't that in the same? That's actually an argument that the friend I had I was exchanging direct messages with today made. It's like, it's like, well, that's different. And it's always different. So it's always different when you don't agree with it. But yeah, it's anyway. But just to get this back to No Time to Die.
Yeah, I was going to say we've gone off on such a tangent.
Yeah, I'm sorry, and that
wasn't your fault. I don't think it was your fault. It's just as much my fault, I think.
But anyway, it's just that there was a whole lot of wasted time. I think I didn't say this earlier. I think Eon should have done due diligence on Danny Boyle. For whatever reason, they fell in love with whatever his idea was. And apparently MGM did too. And then but then suddenly it's like, well, we want you to make changes. Well, you go get this auteur director. He doesn't want to make changes. Like, you should have known that. This should not have been a surprise. And, there's just all this wasted time and energy and the other, there are various things along the lines, and we could actually go 2 hours, 3 hours talking about it. But this is pretty typical. So you do this explosion inside the 007 stage. Oops, you miscalculate. It actually knocks off panels off the exterior of the 007 stage building. And then they're trying to say, oh, it's a minor mistake, minor thing. It's like, if you're knocking panels off the exterior of the building, that's more than a minor thing. It's like, thankfully there were no major injuries, but that's not a little thing. That's a big thing. And also, just real quick, the fan community did not give itself glory in how all this stuff has unfollowed. There was like one fan site that said, "Oh, it's going to be Christopher Nolan. Christopher Nolan's going to direct this." And then suddenly, well, Christopher Nolan says, "No, I'm not going to direct this." And then that fan site said, it's trying to they were trying to play it up as a scoop. And then it's like, and I actually addressed it to him on Twitter, and they said, "Well, we were wrong. Our sources were wrong." Well, you gave voice to the incorrect sources. It's like, you own this. You don't get to say. I mean, like, fan sites love to say we have a scoop, but they don't want to actually do the hard work of actually vetting things. And they don't like being held responsible when they spread incorrect information. And then there was another one. It was a fan club said, "Well, we have it, they're this thing, it was when Danny Boyle was exiting, and they said, well, it's all still under schedule." Well, then guess what? They actually delayed it. One of many delays. They then delayed it from November of 2019 to February of 2020. Well, it's still under schedule. No, it's not. It's been delayed. Dudes, you don't get to have it both ways. You don't get to be an apologist for Eon and then try and say, "Well, this shows we were right." You weren't right. Yeah. It got delayed. It got delayed after that too.
I often get emails from people when they read stuff in the tabloids, and that they email me saying, "Oh, have you seen this news? Have you seen this news?" And it's like, yeah, okay, thanks, I have seen that. And, but be wary of it, because otherwise I'll be on my site and it's like, oh, news. It's just the new James Bond is, I don't know, make up whatever actor is trying to get publicity for their film at the moment, and that's been made up by the Daily Mail or whatever. It's if you need to apply a bit of common sense to any story and try and filter out the bullshit, basically.
Well, and again, going back to that 2016 period, remember when Tom Hiddleston was going to be the next James Bond? There were fan sites claiming this, and oh yeah, we got the inside information. And actually, the most responsible person in that whole thing was, of all people, Tom Hiddleston, because he was getting asked about this at some public appearance. He's going, "No, I don't think so." He's waving people off.
And I think that entire thing was because he was in The Night Manager, which
right, because the director was supposedly on the track to direct Bond 25.
Did you see The Night Manager?
I did not. I have to admit.
Yeah, I know it's really good. Yeah. Very, very good. Very good.
Right.
So, yeah.
But it had a woman director, and so some people thought if Bond 25 was going to have a woman director, she would be a good choice for it. So that was also part of it. So it wasn't just Tom Hiddleston; it was Tom Hiddleston and his director and the Night Manager. It was kind of a package. I wouldn't call it a deal because it didn't happen, but more I think the whole, in that early Bond 25 publicity wave, it was the two of them. And again, neither one of them was promoting the idea. It was all these outside parties.
Sorry, right. I was on mute. I think. Yeah,
you're back in now. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You know what? I think we're running a little late. We should probably wrap this up, just because I'm sorry about all the technical difficulties. Those of you who stayed with us, but I do want to say one thing though. If we have given you any kind of enjoyment, aside from the technical faults, the comedy from the technical faults, but just enjoy the banter going back and forth. Thank you. It's that's the whole point of something like this, because the whole point of being a fan is to have fun. And I know with fandom, boy, you know what? Fandom gets divided into cliques and factions and all this stuff. And it really shouldn't. It should be more of a big tent thing. But anyway, the whole reason David and I wanted to do this was to have fun. And I just want to say that. And David, thank you for doing this, and thanks for having me. And
no problem. It's just the next time I do anything with tech, if my wife tells me about something on a Wednesday night and I look at it on Thursday, I'm going to wait at least a week and test it properly before actually doing something with it. But what I was trying to say earlier on, I saw that there was a question from Edgar about them building film sets in Canada, and
yes,
I've heard that, and I heard it was something like a rocket launch site or something like that, and they spent, I don't know, a few million on it. So wasted time and wasted resources. Yeah.
Mark Tildesley, he was the production designer who was brought in by Danny Boyle, and he was retained after Boyle left. He talked about this on a video interview, and I have that also on the Bond 25 timeline. So yes, that is true. It was it was, and the other thing was, they had secured the 007 stage, which is very expensive to rent. And so they couldn't let it go. So for a while after they let Danny Boyle go and brought in Cary Fukunaga, they're still having to rent the stage, and they turned it into essentially into an adjunct of the art department. And I'm glad Edgar wrote that, and I'm glad we heard the question before we signed off. So that's another thing. I mean, essentially, No Time to Die, it's not one movie. It's like 1.5 movies, at least, because there was all this stuff they associate with the Danny Boyle version of No Time to Die. And like I said, and I'm sorry, I forget which part, if it's part 4, 5, or 6, but there's an embedded video of Mark Tildesley's interview. So yeah, they were building these sets and this rocket, and a whole rocket.
Oh, it was a whole rocket. Wait, have you got part 7 lined up yet?
Not yet. I don't want to think about part 7. It's what, I'll probably, if I have to resort to part 7, I'll make it part 007.
Okay.
Rather than going with the Roman numeral. But I mean, I tried to talk about this on James Bond and Friends Watch Along, and it's one that's sitting in James Page's computer, so I don't know if it's ever going to see the light of day. But I tried to mention this, the movie Cleopatra, which came out in 1963. It was tremendously expensive, and it's not just one expensive movie. It's basically 1.5 or 2 expensive movies, because they actually started filming with another cast in England, and then they shut it down. They moved it to Rome and all this stuff. And it's that's the whole thing about these super expensive movies. It's guys, at some point you should just pull the trigger and just go with it, rather than try and redo it. It's Justice League a few years ago was kind of the same deal. It's what, you should just shoved it out the door. And it's you're not going to make it substantially better by remaking half of it. Just do it. You're just do it. Just get it out the door. And to a degree, I think that's what should have happened with No Time to Die.
Mm. Well, Bill, we said we were going to keep it to an hour, and we are coming up to the hour. So I'd really like to thank you for coming on. We didn't cover all the ground that I expected to. I think partly because of our technical problems, and then partly because of the tangents. But I think that the tangents are part of what make these things fun. You you plan a bit about you plan roughly what you're going to talk about, and then you just get down into all the other nitty gritty, and that's all fun stuff to do. So I think we need to continue this conversation in I don't know, a couple of weeks or something like that, if you're available, because it's I always like talking Bond on a Friday. It's a great way to finish the week. Hopefully people will forgive us our technical problems. I think there have been some nice comments, and so people do understand that these things can be a bit chaotic, and so yeah, I'd really like to continue this conversation.
I'm all for it. I look forward to it, and everybody, sorry for the technical glitches, but it happens sometimes.
The spy command will return.
and so will the James Bond dossier.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you everybody for watching, and we will be back. If you're watching and you're not a subscriber, then please subscribe. My channel is quite modest at the moment. I've got I don't think I've even got 500 people at the moment. So, well, yeah. Thank you very, very much for watching, because I always like talking to Bill about Bond, but having you guys here to interact with is also great fun. Sorry I didn't manage to answer more questions. So well, I'll let you know when we do another one, and yeah, we'll get Bill on again, and maybe make these a regular or semi-regular occurrence. I don't know. We've got a while to wait for the new Bond film, so and a lot of people are doing things, so which is all good. So thanks for watching, and see you soon.
Take care.
Bye, Bill. Bye, all.
Okay. I'm the only one in the meeting again. Oh, weird. Oh, hey, David.
I don't think we've stopped the live stream.
I thought we had, but no, if we were continuing, I think it would say live stream. Well, I don't know. Let's see.
I think it's Dennis. How do I stop this? God, why don't I should really learn how to use this software. Sorry if anybody's watching. Yeah, we're still live. Thanks, Joe. How do I stop this? A jaunty tune would be nice. Yeah, you haven't heard my singing. I can't see how to stop this. End stream. It's in the top right-hand corner. Okay, right. Finally, see you.
So.